Welcome to a very special episode of Geek News Central. I'm your host, Todd Cochran, and tonight we're celebrating 20 incredible years of podcasting. It's been an epic journey filled with tech news, innovation, and most importantly, you, the amazing Ohana, who've been with us every step of the way. From the early days to now, we've grown together, built an incredible community, and there's so much more ahead. So sit back, relax, and join us as we mark 2 decades of Geek News Central. Let's get this celebration starting. Episode 1772, this Wednesday, October 9th. A quick shout out to our incredible sponsors at GoDaddy. Score exclusive deals and discounts at geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy. And to all of you fantastic listeners, of course, you are the heartbeat of this show. And if you want to support the GNC mission, head to geeknewscentral.com/insider and become a GNC insider. We're, of course, lit and live thanks to modern podcast apps. Don't just listen. Experience the show live by grabbing a modern podcast app at podcastapps.com. You can interact in real time and take your podcasting experience to the new level or the next level. While you're at it, check out the full geeknewscentral.com universe by going over to geeknewscentral.com, where you'll find all our partner shows, tons of content, and of course, more tech goodness. To stay in the loop, follow or subscribe via your favorite podcast app and join the community. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter for even more insider scoops. And have something to say? Don't worry. Join the conversation at geeknews.chat or email me directly at geeknews@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on X at geeknews. And of course, you can even catch me on Facebook. Of course, this show would not be possible and everything that we've done for so many years had it not been for our good friends at GoDaddy. And again, a big, big thank you to GoDaddy for being a sponsor here of the show, the longest continuous running sponsor in all of podcasting, in all of the known universe, keeping the savings rolling and the tech flowing. You can grab their best deals at geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy. Of course, if you're ready to score big, yes, let's get you scored big. Let's get you on your way. How about a brand new domain name for just $11.99? Or level up with economy hosting for $6.99 a month, and that includes a free domain name, professional email, and an SSL certificate, all for the first year. You want even more power? No problem. Grab Manage WordPress hosting for just $12.99 a month with all those same perks, free domain, email, and SSL included. And if you're on the fence, don't sweat it. GoDaddy's website builder for a free 1-month test drive, whether you're building something personal, launching the next big thing, in business, GoDaddy's got your back. And again, that's the personal, business, or business plus plans available for you as well. Now, here's the best part. When you hit up geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy, you're not just grabbing a deal. You're supporting this site, this creator, and keeping a small business alive. No weird tracking, no hidden codes, just real savings for real people. And of course, again, a big shout out to GoDaddy for always keeping Geek News Central running and keeping us running strong. Ready to lock in your savings? Head over to geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy. geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy, and let's keep on growing. So, everyone, it's a special day today. 20 years. 20 years I've been doing this show. You know, little did I know. And I grew up here where the studio is today, and was instilled a strong work ethic by both my father and my grandparents, who were very humble. At times, money was tight. I remember my mom working to be able to buy track shoes. You know, we were always had food on the table, don't get me wrong, but we were not running around with a gold spoon in our tongues. And I had a high school education, public education, country school, 96 people, or 97 people in my graduating class. And, everyone knew everyone. Small towns have no secrets, and where I live now is no different. But, those early years of my formation and having graduated and went on to join the Navy, joined the Navy in 1983, and it was always this joke that I had that I aimed to be my own boss. That only took me about 15 years to really, kind of be the boss, but I wasn't the boss, if you know what I mean. There's always someone above you in the hierarchy. But it really allowed me in the job that I had to dive headfirst into tech. I was electronics technician first. I flew second as aircrew. Most of you know I flew on intelligence aircraft. And I had an incredible, really 25-year run, active duty. But the tech never strayed too far because I was always working on high-tech stuff, especially my last 12 or 13 years. And it really kind of started in those early days of running a bulletin board. And, I lived in Guam, I was in Maryland, I was in Hawaii. And we're doing things that in those days, words like Telnet, Wildcat BBS, AOL, all these things that got us online in the beginning, and was really not even the early days of the internet, because that really didn't exist. We were all dialing up. That BBS that I had in those early days had I think it was 47 megs or something like that, RRL hard drive. I think I've got it back on the shelf behind me somewhere. And it really was an interesting time where we'd have to wait 2 or 3 days for response on messages and message boards. There was no email until later. But in May of 2002, the bulletin board things kind of went beyond the life of the dinosaur. And I started a blog. And as I've said many times here, I was not a great blogger by any stroke of imagination. I think maybe by luck, 300 people a week happened on to the blog. And of course, I was still active duty in the Navy. 9/11 had happened. Lots of things. I would have never heard about podcasting, nor been in a position to do podcasting, because I was still very much full active duty, flying combat missions, being deployed, 30, 60 days at a time, coming home for 2 or 3 weeks, turning around. There was no room for a podcast until in June of 2004. I had a life-changing injury that grounded me from flying. And in that recovery phase, I end up in Waco, Texas, of all places, to basically do contract enforcement. We're building airplanes, and I was basically the contract rep on the ground doing inspections, making sure stuff was going the right, being there to consult. Really, there was a lot of project management involved and all that. And it was a perfect thing for someone that was broke, because when you're broke in the Navy, they're looking at you pretty close. What you're going to do for Uncle Sugar? And in October of 2004, and I don't know the exact date, probably the few days before the first episode. Basically Waco in October, even then, was 100 in the shade, and I was in a body cast. And I remember being in my room and hearing Dave Weiner and Adam Curry, Daily Source Code, talking about this thing called podcasting. And I was dialed in. It was like they put a hook in my, hooked me, and I was pulled right in. And I remember going across the street. I was on I-35 in a Hampton Inn, and right across from the Hampton Inn was a Walmart on the other side of the highway. And I went over there, and I don't know, I had a pretty cheap laptop, Windows. I bought the cheapest microphone I could buy, and it was a $14.95 or something like that, $13. So one of those. It wasn't even USB then. It was just plug the audio, the mic into the mic receiver on the laptop, and I think I recorded the first 3 or 4 episodes with that, and then did a little bit of investment in some mics and on an MXL. I have all that stuff still here somewhere. The microphones, especially, maybe not the mixer and everything. But recording that first podcast on October 9th, 2004, and I was using movable type at the time, and to be frank, it really was a kludge to get that first episodes out. And someone had built, I don't even know if they called it a plug-in. I can't remember. But all I know is I got that first episode out, got it submitted to iPodder. There was no iTunes. There was none of that. And, did this show. And if we go back to the Wayback Machine, and if I look at the Wayback Machine now, if I scroll back to the 9th, it's basically says here, Geek News Central podcast number 1. I hope you'll like the first show. We really want your feedback. And that was it. There was no player on the page. None of that. So this was, what Geek News Central looked, for those of you on the web, back in October 2004. I paid a lot of money for that template, if I remember correctly. That thing was fancy dancy. And, everything was good the first couple of episodes. And then episode 3 or 4, something to that effect, I got an email from my hosting provider, you're out of bandwidth. And I think I had 500 gigs I was allowed per month. And the audio files at that time, we were encoding in like 32K or something really small, maybe even 16K. The file size weren't any big. Now, I don't have episode 1 physically anymore because I played AC/DC at the beginning of the show, Back in Black. That was the intro for the first 2 episodes until we kind of figured out real quick we probably shouldn't be doing that. So, things went off like a rocket ship, though. I had to open multiple shared hosting accounts and move the show about every 3 days, maybe 4 days, because I run out of bandwidth. So I had multiple domain names and multiple hosting accounts. And basically, I had to go in and update the RSS feed every time with the new links. I had to update everything as just to keep the show online. There was no hosting, and this got pretty expensive. And this was probably where I got in trouble when I came home and announced that I was doing this thing called podcasting. I think I was up to probably about $400 a month and making this thing work. And obviously I went home after 8 or 9 episodes, told Shoko, my wife, about the what I'm doing, and I get the look, right, and how much is this costing, and you kind of cough a little bit about the cost, but she figures it out pretty quick, and basically said you got 2 years to figure out how to make money with this thing. So, okay, happy go lucky. We're just making up. We had no idea how that was going to work, but by mid-November, I'd gotten the email from Wiley Publishing asking me to write the first book on podcasting, and there's a pretty good story about that. But in the long run, yes, I agreed to, here I am, not an English major at all. There was no Grammarly, we had word processing at the time, but I think I wrote the book on, it wasn't on Word, it was on some other, editor. And I had a copy editor, and I had a technical reviewer. It was a real deal. I got money up front. So I think the check I got was like $13,000 or something for the advance on the book. And wow, that, show that to, the missus, and, kind of the money thing is solved for a little bit. And, I'm under complete secrecy, and several great stories I've talked about in the past about that book deal. But I announced the book, I believe, in March, no, maybe May of 2004. I announced it, and half of you left because I sold out. I was the evil one for taking money. How dare you make money off this thing called podcasting, which I thought very strange. But I'd launched a tech podcast network, and then June of '05, Chris Redlinger from GoDaddy gave me a call, and she said, "Todd, hey, we'd love to sponsor you." And the long story of it is they become the sponsor of the show, even though I had some pretty negative things happen with some virtual accounts with GoDaddy, and they kind of looked at those blog posts, and what it really allowed me to do was then I said, I'll do this, but I want a direct line to someone at the top that I can share if something goes wrong with their purchase that I'm recommending. We went a full month, came back in July. She said, we want to renew. I didn't know how much to charge, but she told me how many conversions we'd had. I went and did math, and long story short, I got a deal to renew for a full year with GoDaddy, and here we are 19 plus years later, and GoDaddy's still a sponsor of this show. And that's a testament to all of you. And but that sponsorship really set things up because it allowed me to have income monthly to be able to go to events like CES and fund a hotel room and not have to come out of my pocket. One of my initial goals of the show was to get a press pass to CES, and so in 2005, I believe 2005, I went with no budget, and went with Andy McCassie from Slashdot Review, and we went and had a good time. And I've been to CES every year since that point up until this year will be the first year that I will miss CES since the beginning. And but after GoDaddy became the sponsor, and they wanted more shows to sponsor, this is where the idea for the company came up. And right on this show, I said, I'm looking for a lawyer, I'm looking for biz dev, I'm looking for graphics guy, I'm looking for a programmer, and we're going to have a call. And we did on freeconferencecall.com, and some of you showed up. I think 9 of you showed up, and I think 4 or 5 of you hung up after you weren't in the mix. And I was left with a lawyer, an MBA, and a graphics guy, and the graphics guy knew a programmer. And from there, we formed what is the primary company that pays me today is Raw Voice, pays my paycheck, and what is known as Blueberry Podcasting today, which is Raw Voice is the parent company of Blueberry. So that's when we launched the company in 2005, was summer and early fall of 2005. But beyond the company stuff, we started the podcast. I started the Podcast Awards in 2005 as well. We had some early products. It was called Podcaster News, PCN. And not all of that ever completely panned out. But we were profitable, and we were doing advertising, and we had enough money to experiment. And but really, the show took a turn. And it was a turn I was never expecting, and one that had this really wake-up call for me was the 200th episode. In August of 2006, on the day of my 200th episode, I got the call that I'd lost my father in an automobile accident. So while I'm packing up to go home, and I don't remember exactly everything, but I believe I recorded a short episode to all of you saying, hey, we'll celebrate episode 200 when I come back, explain a little short 3-minute deal, put it out in lieu of 200. I think that's what I did. There was no Facebook or any of that stuff yet. So, but I do know that when I came home, that I was 5,000 emails of condolences was in my inbox from all of you. And that hit me like a hammer in realizing how big the reach of this show was. And that's where we adopted the word Ohana, because you went from being listeners of this show to becoming the family, part of my family. And I've met many of you over the years. I've run into in airports, at events, restaurants. People will hear me speak and they'll come up and they'll grab me and say, Todd, I'm a listener of the show. So I've literally met probably at least 1,000 of you in person over this past 20 years. And so from my bottom of my heart, it's been the most important piece of this is all of you. In 2009, I wanted to experiment with video. And part of it is because I was recording at 8 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time at the time, pretty lonely doing a solo show. And I was just looking for some feedback. And we started streaming it, and I don't know if the show got any better or worse, but I know that there was interaction that was happening. And the interaction was enough to motivate me to keep positive when the email stuff was crickets. And for those of you that listen to the show and listened for years, the email that you will send to a podcaster about whether you liked, hate, or whatever your comment was is a lot about what keeps shows going. Them getting feedback. If they think they're talking to the wind and not having an impact, they quit. So as you listen to podcasts, please make sure you're giving them feedback too. And you don't have to give me feedback. I know you're out there. Give other podcasts you listen to feedback and say thanks or that sucked or whatever it may be. Those of you who've been around long enough remember Sal. Sal in New Jersey, if you're still out there, come on back, brother. Sal would fight with me all the time on the show, and we'd raise his comments, and it was good. It was good commentary, and probably made me a better podcaster, even though he annoyed me and I annoyed him. I think he finally gave up and went away. But anyway, we kept cranking, right? And all those middle years up to about really 2015, it was just turn and burn. Put the episodes out, build the company. Put an episode out, build the company. And it was, burning basically burning things on both ends. I had retired from the Navy in 2007. I was doing something else for 12 years in the federal. I can't talk about that a lot. But, for a period of time, I was double dipping from a work standpoint. Well, many years of working all day, working the business all night, recording the podcast, really burning the candle on all ends. And it was a challenge. Taking calls during my lunch break, it just goes on and on and on. And obviously, I got inducted in Podcast Hall of Fame in 2015. I'm forever grateful for that as well. And in 2019, was a pretty pivotal moment in leaving Hawaii. And I won't go into the personal details of that, but you all know that I moved back to Michigan from Hawaii after being there 25 some years. And really took basically I was living Blueberry 24 hours a day from that point on, and made major changes. And the company has went, like a rocket ship in the last 5 years, with a little more stick and rudder that I've been able to provide, and just some changes to the team and so forth. But, it was a sole focus starting in 2019. And looking back, on the evolution of the industry here, started as a bunch of geeks and comics and, mostly a white guys club. And, today what we have is diversity beyond belief, have the ability for anyone really to create a show. And I'll be honest with you, the thrill of doing the show still is there. I'm still excited. Some days not as much as others, but usually I'm pretty excited to, strap on the microphone here and do the shows. Sometimes I'm dragging, sometimes I'm tired. But just like you, those of you that are listening to this show, I'm working 9 to 5. I got a, and I'm the owner of a company. So it's turn and burn for me really almost 6 days a week. So for me, living in the trenches and doing a show while having a full-time job, and matter of fact, doing more than one show, 2 regulars and then one that I'm a co-host on. Well, two that I'm a co-host on, New Media Show, which we recorded earlier today, and then Podcast Insider, which is the show for Blueberry. And, I'm on this microphone about 5 hours a week. And I am not the best orator. I still destroy the English language. I'm still a nerd. I'm still a techie. And I like giving my perspective. And I've told you all from the very, very, very beginning of this ride, when it's no longer fun, I quit. Okay? When it's no longer fun, I will quit. But I'm still having fun. And I think that's the most important part about this entire journey. The website, you look at the website in 2010 as compared to, what it looks like essentially today. The design hasn't changed that much, but it's functional and it's Google friendly. And we rely on Google to bring a lot of you to the show. Many of you found us through Google searches. Many of you found us through recommendations. So as you're out and about and you're part of this Ohana, make sure to not forget to share that you listen to this podcast to your friends that you think this show would be a good fit for. Because it's at 6 degrees of separation. It allows us to continue to grow. The number one way for someone to learn about a podcast is someone tell another person about a podcast. And I'm sure there's a ton of stuff here that I have probably missed going over. How can you even start to discuss 20 years? GoDaddy and Citrix GoToMeeting, the stuff we did at CES, those are all shows in their own right. The whole video portion of this show in its own right, and not ever worrying about building a YouTube channel. We've never been qualified for monetization on YouTube, not a single time. But that was not the point of doing video. The point is like right now, Fader Dragon says anyone who podcasts through a movable type site is true OG. That's right. Thank God I'm on WordPress now. So, from that perspective, this little bit of feedback that we get and the emails that you all send is the coal that helps keep this engine running. I just think back to all the moments, and we've shared a lot together over all these years. And I do say we, because you are Ohana, you are family here. And maybe you've gotten sick and tired of hearing the sponsor messages or me asking you to be an insider. But all these things are truly, truly important in their own regard. And I try to bring you the best show I can. And I am definitely not the best podcaster out there. I'm not a Joe Rogan, nor will I ever be. But what I am is a guy that grew up in the country with humble beginnings. High school education followed by a bachelor's degree late in life on a field that I'm not even working in right now. Not the best grammar in the whole world. Thanks God for Grammarly. And one that definitely destroys English words on a regular basis. And by God, if I can do it, if I can do this and succeed and grind and put out a show, and anyone can. So that's why I also encourage many of you that have listened to the show over years have done your own shows. You look at Kirk. He's our executive producer here. He does the show prep for me, helps him with articles. he's a brother from another mother. I love him to death. And Kirk gets a lot of satisfaction working on the show. And, he is an unsung hero here. He really, really is. And he does a GNC Week in Review with Scott and him. So, make sure you listen to Kirk's show. And Kirk's learning just like the rest of us and doing podcasting. Obviously, the Gadget Professor, Mr. Don Bain. Don, I've known Don for years. He's a wonderful man. He's very brilliant. He's done very well for himself over the years, very successful. And he is the Gadget Professor. And to this day, he's putting out episodes. Of course, my co-host over at the New Media Show, Rob Greenlee, where him and I, two curmudgeons, get on and talk about podcasting. And we may agree to disagree, but we do know one thing, and it goes back to this show. Podcasting is here and succeeding today because of one thing and one thing only. RSS. RSS is open. It's evolving. It's growing. This is why I'm promoting you guys to go over to podcastapps.com and get yourself a new modern podcast app. Help with feedback. Help us as listeners take back control of the podcasting space and expand it, because there is threats on the horizon. Big threats. Spotify doesn't like RSS. They would just as soon Spotify goes away and that they become a gatekeeper. So would YouTube. They say tongue-in-cheek they like RSS, but ultimately they don't. Now, if you're from Red Bull, I'm still looking for that sponsorship, by the way. And by the way, 2 for today. That's unusual. Yes, go ahead and scold me. But I think one thing that we have to understand is that podcasting is today because of RSS and no gatekeepers, which has allowed people like you and I to create content without asking anyone's permission and doing it our way. About 4 or 5 years ago, it was before the pandemic, I believe. And I've told this story before, but I just want to share with you the thing I'm thinking about. I was sitting in a panel. It was a diversity panel. I was probably the only white guy in the room. I sit in the back, just keep my mouth shut and listening. And there was a group there that had done some activist protest in Atlanta. And the reason they were looking and starting a podcast was because as they were protesting, the media showed up, and the media went over to the sidewalk and talked to some non-protester and asked his opinion and about what was going on with the protests. And they never talked to the protesters directly. And they were so pissed that the media would ignore them, they decided to take control and do their own podcast. And I knew at that moment that everything that we had done in those earlier years in making it easier and working so hard to allow anyone to create a podcast, that we had succeeded. I hear from people all over the world. I talk to people from all walks of life, old, young, doesn't matter. I mean, red, white, and blue. It runs a full spectrum. And I've been lucky enough to travel to places like Saudi Arabia. I've spoken in the Philippines. I've spoke all over this country, in Canada, and at various different places on podcasting. But the most important thing that I see at all these events is really an equal number of men and women that are attending these events. And sometimes the ladies now are outnumbering the men. And people creating content, having a voice, and really doing it their way. There's no rules. They do as they wish. And there's a big talk now about video and podcasting. And believe me, it's advertising driven. We all have more time to listen than we have to watch. It's true for me. I look at my usage time on my phone every week, and I know how many hours I have listened to podcasts, and it is by far more than I have watched any video on TV. So wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you for being here. There's over 100 different locations to be able to consume this podcast. I want to thank you for being subscribed and following the show and being part of the Ohana. It's been a wonderful, wonderful 20-year run. We're going to continue. And I promised you that we would do a regular show today, too. So we're going to continue with the regular podcast today. And just as a reminder from a programming standpoint, I get on a train tomorrow morning, go to Chicago. Friday, I fly to Honolulu. I'm going to spend a few days in Honolulu, catching up there. And then I'm off to the Philippines. And then I'll be back here in January. So the show is going to go on the road to the studio on the road. There's going to be probably a shift in time that I'll be doing the show to probably much later in the evening, just because of the time change. I am planning on doing live. I've got a few, maybe not first 2 episodes, but we will have video continuing. Just got to get a green screen in. That's the only thing I'm waiting on. I don't think you want to see my kitchen behind me where I'm at. Maybe you do. I don't know. But yeah, we're going to go cold turkey with the studio after I get done tonight. And all the work that's been done to transition is complete. So that's where we're at. So happy 20 years, everyone. It's been a fun ride. So if you're still here and you want to hang out for the tech, please do. If you're just here for the celebrating 20 years, well, I guess you can go home. But otherwise, this show has been, for a period of time, there have been some people that have complained. Why do you talk so much at the beginning of the show? And we all know why. Those who've been here for a while. We don't get into the tech for 6-7 minutes. Today, obviously, much, much longer because of the circumstances here, right, of the 20th year. But we're still going to have personal time together. That's not going to change. Okay, SpaceX next Starship launch. Yes. Looks like we're ready to rock and roll. Could be as early as Sunday. So let's light that fire. The FAA is still reviewing, but they could approve it soon. So they're saying it could be as early as this Sunday, and that's going to be exciting launch. I am going to be watching wherever I am. You can be guaranteed in whatever time zone I'm in. So we'll keep an eye out for that launch. It's going to be probably the most exciting one ever as they try to catch that first stage. Zoom has had an update. Its latest feature update focuses heavily on its AI assistant. We've been running that more in Zoom meetings just because there's so much going on. I don't want to miss stuff. And we always let people know we're running the assistant, and we let everybody know when we're turning it off, so it's not like people don't know. But Zoomtopia 24 feature drop is, again, heavily focused on workplace and business services, which we are fully dialed in on. The AI Companion 2.0 promises to be a persistent present in the Zoom workplace window, and it will be even remember previous conversations, come with citations for statements users made. So that's interesting. And again, this AI Companion is assistant designed to help find important point messages, note taking, and so forth. So we'll see about all that when we get the update and what that entails. Also, the Bitcoin creator, quote unquote, supposed creator, says he is not the Bitcoin creator. The man identified as a Bitcoin creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, in a new HBO documentary has something to say. Wrong. Wrong again. In the just-released HBO film on the history of the world's biggest digital currency, Money Electric, the Bitcoin mystery, documented filmmaker Colin Hobach comes to the conclusion the anonymous creator of Bitcoin was none other than a longtime member of the community, early Bitcoin developer Peter Todd. And by the way, damn, I wish I would have kept those Bitcoins from before. We can go back to the previous episodes where I talked about them. All I can say is, Damn, I wish I had those Bitcoins. Oh my God. I don't know how many total. I think there was like 13 or 14. Oh, yeah. There's so many missed opportunities. How many did any of you make some money on Bitcoin when we were talking about Bitcoin in those early days? Anyway, Peter Todd dismissed a claim in the documentary released yesterday and denied it again. He says Hobach's evidence for me being Satoshi is the same kind of coincidence-based circumstantial thinking that fuels conspiracies like QAnon. Todd told us in an email, which is ironic given that Hobach's previous big project was a documentary on QAnon. He clearly didn't try to debunk his theories either. So I think Hobach only included the Satoshi claim as a marketing ploy. He was really creating a documentary about Bitcoin and needed a hook to get media attention. He picked me to accuse mainly because I was an unlikely candidate, which helped drum up even more attention. I don't think he had an interest in finding the real truth. So, that's the big mystery. Will that ever be solved? Do you think that the creator of Bitcoin will ever be... There's a wallet out there somewhere, I believe, if I remember correctly. But it'd be interesting. I think that wallet's watched. And if any transaction happens on that wallet, boy, that will send the world astir. Wouldn't it be kind of cool if that person's out there and they just moved like one Bitcoin? Just one. And watch the whole world explode. It would be kind of fun, right? And by the way, if you are using one of those modern podcast apps, you can boost this show. We'll talk about that in a minute. Amazon same-day prescription delivery expanding to nearly half of the United States in 2025. Amazon set plans to bring same-day prescription delivery to additional 20 U.S. cities. The prescriptions offered through Amazon Pharmacy. Amazon been working to speed up deliveries of medications as it look to accelerate its push into healthcare. One thing I can tell you is when I get my prescription drugs from the VA, they are one heck of a lot more expensive than when I can get them through TRICARE. Almost 4 times as expensive. So it's curious. You'd think it would be the same government to government, but it isn't. For those of you that know, you'll understand this, but we have not gotten any additional boost in, but we have had folks that have been streaming sats. So Pestmerk, I want to thank you for your 20 sats a minute streaming of the show. We definitely appreciate that. Who else if I go down through here? But mostly Darren and Pestmerk are the ones that are using the new modern podcast apps. How come? Come on, give it a try. Give a new modern podcast app a roll for the dice. Podcastapps.com, ladies and gentlemen. Also, we want to thank our insiders, and tonight, 2 of our biggest and longtime contributors to the show, their donations came in. Nigel Cottrell and Dale Taylor. You guys got the super donation of $25 US a month. We definitely appreciate that from both of you. You have been longtime loyal, all the insiders. Doesn't matter if it's $25 or $2 or one-time donations. Those donations really, really go a long way. And, you both have donated consistently year after year after year. And I definitely appreciate it. Andrew, Roger, Michael, Kirk, Curtis, Christian, Michael, Daniel, SJG, Gary, James, all you folks that are contributing as an insider, it's greatly appreciated. And the rest of you, get on the bandwagon, geeknewscentral.com/insider. And if you don't want to contribute your treasure, we definitely, time and talent is also appreciated. Because we are about time to do a new Geek News Central website. That is on the horizon here. So, if one of you are web devs and maybe think you want to help out with that, let me know. No, Blueberry doesn't do any of that for me. I don't get to use my company developers to help me with website design. U.S. Department of Justice wades into the Realtek lawsuit that accuses MediaTek of patent abuse. This is big. Taiwanese chip firm MediaTek is under scrutiny with U.S. Department of Justice taking interest in an antitrust dispute. They believe, Realtek believes that MediaTek has been paying a company here in the United States to file lawsuits against their patents. That's the gist of it. So some very dirty, naughty stuff potentially going on there. An interesting article over at space.com saying the U.S. needs a space rescue service to help astronauts in distress. You know how expensive it is to have a spacecraft on standby at all time? You know, I think this is an unrealistic dream at this point. I just don't think it can do it. Astronauts understand the risk. Once they're up there, they have an escape vehicle to get out. But, you know, Boeing just couldn't get their act together and sent them a turd. So everyone on the International Space Station right now has a way off and a way to get home if they have to. They get in their capsules and they come home. So we really don't need a rescue service as long as you have a qualified spacecraft to get up there in the first place. Ransomware gang Trinity has joined a pile of scumbags to target healthcare. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services sounded an alarm through a security advisory about these new hackers. They noted that the Health and Sector Cybersecurity Coordination is aware of at least one healthcare entity in the United States has fallen victim to Trinity ransomware recently. This appears to be the Rocky Mountain gastroenterology, which has been listed on the Trinity leak site with the group claiming to have stolen 330 gigabits of data. So we got another character there going after healthcare providers. Brazil, well, I shouldn't say too many bad words, but Brazil's FCC has given the order to unblock X. So X is back online as of today in Brazil. So the Brazil National Telecommunication Agency sent orders to service providers to unblock X, ending a 5-week ban of the social media site. So they paid all their fines. So this Supreme Court Justice Alexander D. Moraes, ordered the unblocking. And they extorted the money out of X and got their way. It's very, very discouraging. OpenAI is firing back at Elon Musk over altruism versus greed lawsuit. And I think OpenAI's got their own challenges right now with them changing their business models. But anyway, OpenAI has accused Elon Musk of harassment in a legal fight that's unfolding as the startup weighs a plan to shift to a for-profit business model. I don't know how you can go from non-profit to profit. I don't know how you can change this, but when people are given a whole bunch of money as a non-profit, it's very, very weird, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more lawsuits on this. And but anyway, Elon's not happy, and neither some others. Of course, Elon's got his own competing thing out there with Grok, so time will tell what happens over this. But that OpenAI back and forth is going to continue. If you live in New Jersey, you may have seen some northern lights. So if you were able to see that, congratulations. I guess that's a pretty rare occurrence up there. Also, Casio. Yes, Casio admits a network breach and reveals a system shutdown. They've confirmed the cyber attack. And a short announcement published on its Japanese website, the company said it spotted the intrusion on October 5th. After conducting an internal investigation, it was determined that the unauthorized access had caused a system failure, resulting in the inability to provide some services. So, a man-in-the-middle attack of some sort. So anyway, another cyber attack out there. Also, not to mention, people are being able to do phishing through a Microsoft 365 hack, where a for-pay two-factor authentication service called Mamba which is completely bogus and illegal, which is doing all kinds of things to mask where it's hosted and lots of crazy programming to get this to work. But make sure that when you go to log in to Microsoft 365 or any other place where you have to do a two-factor authentication, make sure that the two-factor authentication app is on your phone. Or you have factor authentication that comes to your telephone number via text message. I run a two-factor authentication software here that I use. And I use Google Authenticator and I use Microsoft Authenticator. And I have certain services on both, all under heavy lock and key. And but don't fall for this situation. And when you want to log into Microsoft 365 or make sure you go to Microsoft.com directly in your browser and log in. Don't just click something that appears and it looks like it's an authentication. Be very, very careful out there. All right. Nintendo is making an alarm clock so you can wake up to Zelda and Super Mario. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's $99.99. But this is one of those things that if you are a Nintendo fan, you're going to want one of these. It's not a successor to the Switch, but Nintendo does have a new piece of hardware. The device is called Alarmo, and it responds to your movements, which means you can snooze it with a gesture. Oh, I like that. Or stop it by actually getting out of bed. It costs $99.99 and be available in early 2025. Though Nintendo says Switch Online subscribers can purchase it early right now. Okay, I don't have a Switch, but my son does. Is it worth $99? Probably not. But it looks cool, right? So, Nintendo fans, maybe you want one. I've kept some of this aftermarket stuff boxed up. Amazon is revamping Ring subscription with AI video search. My Wise camera service, which I pay $2.99 a month, $2.99 a month, has had AI search for a while. It works pretty good. You can even put in faces on your Wise camera so it doesn't report on you. So, but again, they're revamping its subscription offering. The AI-powered video search is going to start at $19.99 per month. Oh my God. Really? $20? It's death by subscription, ladies and gentlemen. How many of you are paying that with your Ring? Paying a subscription model. My doors don't support a Ring device because I think it opens the door for you, right? No, actually not. It's just a doorbell. I got security cameras. That's all I need. I'm good. Someone comes here, they better have a good reason to be coming here, to be quite frank. Oh, here we go. Technology replacing people. Wimbledon tennis tournament is replacing line judges with technology and break with tradition. So no more yelling at the ref. You're going to have to yell at the computer. So these tennis players at the All England Club has announced that technology will be used to give the out and fault calls at the championship from 2025, eliminating the need for human officials to make them. Wimbledon organizers said the decision to adopt live electronic calling was made following an extensive testing at the 2024 tournament and builds on existing ball tracking and line calling technology has been in place for many years. We consider the tech to be sufficiently robust and at the time is right to take this important step in seeking maximum accuracy on officiating. For the players, will offer the same conditions they played under at a number of other events on the tour. So, how about that? So Wimbledon, change is afoot for you, for sure. Guess what we did? We ran out of articles. Short article day. Hey, how many of you... Okay, so I'm just going to have a little fun with you. How many of you are getting political ads on your computers. If you know who you're voting for, run their bill up and let their ads play. The opposite party, that is. Every time you see an ad that you don't agree with, just let it play. So they get charged the whole amount. All right, ladies and gentlemen, more than likely no show on Monday, but I will be back with you on Thursday. But again, Thursday of next week will probably be a late show, 7, 8 o'clock or so. Probably that will be about the time the show, maybe even late as 9 Eastern going live. So those of you that are on the West Coast, you can tune in early. And but anyway, that's going to be the shift. Just not possible, because what it is 6 p.m. here is 6 a.m. there. And after working all night to 2 or 3 in the morning, I am not going to do a 6 a.m. show. I might see if I can. I just don't think I'll be in a good brainway at 4 o'clock in the morning to do a show there, so you can get one at 4 this time here. And then when the clocks change, it'll be 13 hours off. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show today. geeknews@gmail.com, geeknews@gmail.com. Wrapping up and moving forward into the next century. You know, I am 60 now, so how long do you think I can go? Have you guys started a betting pool yet? My brain's still here. My health is still here. So sponsors still here. You're still here. So I guess we'll continue on, and it's still being fun to do the show. And if you've been with us tonight and you have any comments on today's show, I'd love to have them for the starting on our 21st year in podcasting. But again, it's been my pleasure being the podcast. My name is Todd Cochran, geeknews@gmail.com, at Geek News on Twitter. And we'll see you from the other side of the world in just about a week's time.